Very good morning, dear children. Welcome back. This video is for class 10 subject science chapter number 8, how do organisms reproduce, and this is our lecture number 4. So dear children, as we have finished with asexual reproduction and its all methods, in today's lecture we will understand what is sexual reproduction. We will see the difference between asexual and sexual reproduction. Then we will understand the structure of a flower and we will see the reproduction in flowering plants. So children, let us begin with the sexual reproduction. That what is sexual reproduction? So sexual reproduction is a mode of reproduction in which two parents are involved, one male and one female. So here, as we know that sexual reproduction takes place in complex multicellular organisms. So here, as this mode of reproduction takes place in complex multicellular organisms, so here in the complex organisms, there are particular cells which perform a particular function. So highly organized structure is there. For sure, there would be some specific cells which do the function of reproduction as well. They are called as male sex cells, or in females they are called as female sex cells. They are also called as gametes. So here they will be called as male gametes, and in females they will be called as female gametes. Now we know that these two, male and female parent, they are having their one cell or their male sex cells, and females have female sex cells. So here the male parent is having its male sex cell or gamete, and female is having its female sex cell or gamete. So here it is having its one cell. The male partner is also having one cell, and these two cells fuse together. Fusion takes place and one cell is formed. By their combination, one new cell is formed. This cell is called as zygote. It is also called fertilized egg. Now, this zygote, which is called as fertilized egg or the germ cell, it is also called as germ cell. This one cell, because here because of the fusion of these two cells, one new cell has formed. Now this new cell develops and number of cells or multiplication of cell takes place, and now this is called as embryo. So this is the basic of sexual reproduction, that two parents are involved and each parent is having its sex cells which fuse together and they form a fertilized egg. And when this egg reproduces or grows further, then it forms the embryo, and hence the production of a new organism takes place. Now let us understand the importance of sexual reproduction. So we know that in sexual reproduction, because of the two different sex cells, they fuse together, they provide the variations in the DNA. That means there would be changes or the characteristics would be different than the parent cells. Here Because of these variations, these species becomes able or they are more adaptive to the changes in the environment. So the survival of the species becomes easier and possible. Here, because of the variations, development of new characteristics also takes place. Now let us see the differences between asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. So on the basis of parents involved, as we know that in asexual only one parent is involved. Here in the sexual reproduction, two parents are involved. Here, as only one parent is involved, so no variation comes. But here variation takes place. So here the offsprings or the young ones will be similar to the parent. And here the offsprings will have some differences as compared to the parents. Then in the asexual reproduction, division of cells takes place, or you can call it as mitotic cell division. But in case of sexual reproduction, first the fusion of cells, which is also called as meiosis, fusion takes place, and then further one cell keeps on dividing to grow a new organism. The fourth difference is that here in the asexual reproduction, the chances of variations will be less. But here in the sexual reproduction, chances of variations will be more. As the complex organisms, they undergo the sexual reproduction. In the same manner, the plants, many of the plants which are complex in nature, they also undergo the sexual reproduction. So here, when we are talking of reproduction, generally we are talking of the plants which have the flowers in it. So here, it is the flower of a plant that takes part in the reproduction. So the basis of the sexual reproduction will remain the same, that here also one male and one female sex organ will be present. So these two sex organs are involved to reproduce the plants. And when these reproductive organs of the plant, they are present in the flowers of the plant, then these plants are called as angiosperms. So angiosperm is a term used for flowering plants. So to understand how the reproduction takes place in angiosperms, first we should understand that what is the structure of a flower, or where these male and female sex organs are present inside a flower. So here we have a structure of a flower, which is longitudinal section of a flower. So here you can see various parts of it. Let us discuss these parts, that what is their function or what is their role in reproduction and what is their name. So here you will see that this is the basis of the flower, where the flower is produced. So this is called as pedicle. Now the part from where the flower starts growing is called receptacle or thalamus. Here you will find that these green, this part which I have drawn here with the pencil, this is actually the part of the flower. When the part is enclosed in the form of a bud, then this part supports it. So this is called as sepal. Then we have the ovary. So this part is the ovary of the flower. Here, this part that you are seeing inside the ovary is the ovule. A plant can have one ovule or it can have many ovules in the ovary of it. Then you will find a projection here. This part of the flower is called as stigma. And this structure which is supporting the stigma is called the style. Then this stigma, style and ovary, as these are the female organ system, female sex organs of the flower. That is why they are together are called as stigma, style and ovary. Together are called as carpels. Then here you can see some filament, and here we have some thicker portion. So this filament like structure is called the filament only, and this projection is called as anther. And these two are together called as stamen. Here the shape which you are seeing here are the petals of the flower. So these are the petals. Petals of a flower are generally very bright in color. The reason is there are two purposes of having petals in a flower. Just look at here that the anther and the filament together are called as stamen, and this is the male sex organ of a flower. Here we have the stigma, style and ovary. Together are called as female sex organ of the flower. So here inside the flower there are possibilities that male sex organ and female organ system, female sex organs both are present in a single flower. Then that flower will be called as bisexual, which is having both the sex cells or both the sex organs in it. If a flower is having either one of them, either male sex organ or female sex organ, then it will be called as unisexual or having one sex cell or one sex organ in it. So here I was telling you the importance of petals. So petals, they are bright in color. So they attract the insects, birds and bees to sit on them. There is a reason why the petals are there bright in color and attract the birds, that I will let you know later. The another purpose of having petals is that petals protect the male sex organ and female sex organ of the plant, of the flower. So these are soft in nature, or you can say that there is a need to protect these parts. So it is the petal that protects it. So children, here I am showing you the picture of a plant. Here you will find that this is the stigma, this is style, here we have the ovary, these are sepals, this is receptacle or thalamus, and this is pedicle. Here we have our petals which are shown in the purple color, and these are filaments, and this projection is called as anther. So anther and filament together are called as stamen, which are the male sex organs of the flower. Here we have the stigma, style, and the ovary together are called as carpel, and they can also be called as pistils. So these three together are called as female sex organs of the flower. Children, here I am showing you the male reproductive sex organ of the flower, which is stamen. Stamen is composed of anther and filament. Anther is the supporting structure or the tube-like structure. On the top of it, it is having the anther. Anther is having pollen sacs in it where the pollens are present. Actually, it is the pollen which is the reproductive or male sex cell of the flower. And here you see the ovary or the female sex organ of the flower. So as we have seen that here at the top we have the stigma. Stigma is having a purpose that pollen grains from the stamen or the anther will come up here and will stick at the stigma. Now, this is the ovule which is having the egg in it or the female sex cell in it. This is the ovary, and here we have a pollen tube through which the pollen grains will come up and fuse with the ovule inside the ovary itself. Now let us understand the reproduction in flowering plants. We have understood that where inside the flower of a plant the female and male sex cells are present. So let us see how this process takes place inside the flower. So the first step of it is pollination. What do you mean by pollination? Pollination is the transfer of pollen grains. I told you, we have just seen that a stamen is having a filament and over it, it has the anther on it. So anther is having numerous pollen grains in it. And it's the pollen grain which is the male sex cell of a flower. Now, this pollen grain has to be transferred or has to go near the female sex cell. How it is happening? The process in which the pollen grains are transferred to the stigma or the female sex organ, that process is called as pollination. So here I'm having the diagram with me, that this is the part of the flower. Here I've shown you the part of ovary, petals and the filament and anther. Here we have the stigma. So in this anther, or each of the anther is having numerous pollen grains in it. Now the pollen grains will transfer from the anther to the stigma. This process is called as pollination. But as we know, there are types of conditions that it can happen that anther from one flower will be transferred to the stigma of the same flower. That means in one flower itself the transfer or the pollination is occurring. So this pollination is called as self-pollination. Now there are possibilities that the pollen grains from one plant, because of the wind or the insects that sit on the petals of the flower, what happens? The pollen grain sticks to the insects that sit on the petals, and if that insect is going to another flower, then that pollen grain will be transferred, and somehow if it comes on the stigma, then the pollination occurs. So if from the anther of one flower, the pollen grains are transferred to the stigma of another flower, then this is called as cross pollination. So there are two types of pollinations occurring, self-pollination and cross-pollination. When pollination occurs in one flower, that means that anther is having pollen grains, and pollen grains, they keep on transferring from the anther to the stigma of the same flower. Whereas if the pollen grains are transferred from one flower to the stigma of the another flower, then that is called as cross-pollination. The properties of a self-pollination is that in case of self-pollination, there is no requirement of any external agent like insects or birds. It can happen by the process of wind, or it can happen by itself or by chance. Or the pollen grains are loosely bound inside the anther, so even the wind can move it to the stigma. Another reason here is that as the pollen grains are transferred inside the same flower, variation chances will be very less. But here in case of cross-pollination, external agents are required, or wind can also do it, or the insects or birds are doing so. And here the chances of variations will also be more. Second step of reproduction in flowering plants is fertilization. So fertilization is happening when the male sex cell and female sex cell, they fuse together. So at the stigma we have the pollen grain or the male sex cell. Inside the ovary, in the ovule, we have the female sex cell or egg. Now what happens that through the pollen tube, the pollen grain, they come up in the ovule and gets fused with the female sex cell or female sex gamete. So here fertilization takes place and one cell is formed which is called as zygote, the germ cell or the fertilized egg. So this is called as the process of fertilization. And all step is seed and fruit formation. So what happens in this case, that we have the ovary where the reproduction is taking place inside a flower, and we were having a ovule. Remember, one ovary of the flower can have a single ovule or it can have multiple ovules. So accordingly, either single zygote will produce, or in different ovules, different zygotes or multiple zygotes will be produced. So here just one cell after the fusion of the male and female sex cell of the flower takes place, which is called as zygote. When this zygote keeps on growing, then it is called as embryo, and when embryo again develops, then it is called as seed. So this part, when fully developed, it becomes the seed, and the rest of the part of ovary becomes the pulp of the fruit. So the ovary itself is getting converted into a fruit, which will be having the embryo, which is being converted into a seed, and the wall of the embryo will now become the covering of the seed. Here the walls of the ovary can become hard or they can become fleshy according to the conditions. For example, in peas, the ovary walls becomes harder, and in case of tomato and plum, it remains fleshy and edible. Here, there is a need to understand the embryo. Here, inside the seed, as we have studied that growing part, when we were having just one cell or zygote, it keeps on increasing in size, keeps on multiplying itself, and this becomes a little bigger in size. Then what happens? Inside the seed, there is a tiny living part which is called as embryo. And this embryo is actually having two fleshy parts or swollen parts on it, like this. Here what happens, that here the food is stored. This part is called as radicle, and when the embryo develops further, that means whenever it will have the favorable conditions, then it will start germinating. Otherwise, till the time it remains inside the seed and the favorable conditions are not available, it will remain in dormant situation, means inactive. So the portion where the embryo stores the food is also called as cotyledon. Now, the next step that we have is seed dispersal and seed germination. So, what do you mean by seed dispersal? It means that the seed and the fruits produced by the plant, they are likely to fall under the mother plant only. So, if so, that all the seeds will start germinating here itself under the plant, then there will be an overcrowding of the seedlings, and there will be the deficiency of the sunlight which is falling on the seedlings. So here complete development of seedlings cannot take place. So what happens? So seeds and fruits are widely distributed and dispersed over a large area, and this process is called as seed dispersal. Now, seed dispersal can be done with the help of wind, it can be done with the water, it can be done using animals or humans. Now, we have a term called as seed germination. Many times you might have observed that the gram or the chana that we call it, when we soak chana for a while or for some time and then we try to keep it inside a cloth for a whole day, then it starts germinating. But the condition is it should not get dried. Only the favorable conditions should be provided to it and it starts germinating. This is called as seed germination, or you can say that the changes that occurs in a seed leading to the formation of the new plant or seedling in under the favorable conditions. So this process is called as seed germination. Here availability of water, temperature, suitable temperature and air is necessary. So whenever the seed will start germinating, the cotyledons will grow up as they absorb the water, and here we will have the growth in this portion. So here actually what is happening, these developing shoots are called as plumule and the developing root is called as radicle. These two are the cotyledons. So this is how the seed gets germinated. It develops its roots and shoots and starts growing. So this is it for today's lecture. Let us summarize our lecture once. In today's lecture, we have understood what is sexual reproduction. Mode of reproduction in which two parents are involved is called the sexual reproduction. Then we have seen the differences between the sexual and asexual reproduction. We understood the various parts of the flower. We understood where the male and female sex cells are present inside the flower. Then later we studied the reproduction in angiosperms, the flowering plants. So here the reproduction happened in mainly 4 steps. Pollination, where the pollination, inside the pollination what happens, that pollen grains from the anther, they gets transferred to the stigma of the same flower or the different one. So here self-pollination or cross-pollination takes place. Second step was fertilization. In fertilization, the pollen grain with the help of pollen tube, they come up inside the ovule and join or fuse together with the ovum or the egg. Next step is seed and fruit formation. So by forming a zygote, and when it starts growing, then the ovary converts into fruit and the ovule converts into seed. Then we have seen the seed dispersion and seed germination. That how the seed germination takes place, because of which the reproduction of the new plants, flowering plants takes place. So for today's lecture, this was it. I'll see you in the next lecture where we will start the reproduction in humans. Till then, take care and goodbye.